Now, this is a topic that happens to a lot of business owners. It's what happens when you hire the wrong person in your business. So, today we're going to talk about that on today's episode. So, definitely stay tuned. The truth of the matter is, when you're running a business, if you really want to scale your business, you're going to have to actually bring on people because there's only so far you're going to be able to take your business yourself. I mean, I recall just talking to a lot of people about their business, and they talk about how they want to grow their business and they want to scale it to the next level. And they're like, hey, this is how much time I have. I'm doing this. I'm working, 10, 12 plus hours a day. I don't have any more time, but I want to grow my business. Now, one of the things that I have to help a lot of people understand is that if you are going to grow your business, then that means you're going to have to actually be able to do more in your business. Not necessarily you, or I guess maybe let me put it a different way. Your business is going to have to be able to do more. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, it really starts to change the way you think about things because, when your business is able to do more, let's take, for example, let's say if you're a marketing agency and you serve your clients, you help your clients get their marketing ads up and you help manage all that for them, which is great. The thing is, if you are going to grow as a business, you got a couple options. Either you can charge people more or you can just serve more clients. Now, if you're charging people more, you're definitely going to have to communicate why and the value of why you're charging people more. And you might actually have to start going after different clients that can actually afford to pay these higher prices. But if you're trying to really actually do more or serve more clients, you're probably going to need help. You may not be able to do it yourself. And I always tell people, even if you are going to do it yourself, you definitely want to figure out, hey, how can I actually start to create processes or have people in my team that can help me do this? Because if I can actually get other people involved in the process, we can probably grow a lot faster. We're actually going to be able to grow a lot bigger. Think about the example like when Jeff Bezos was in his garage and he was starting the business Amazon and he was shipping books to people. Now, fast forward, 20 plus years later, as big as Amazon is, there's no way in the world Jeff Bezos would have ever been able to go from shipping books out of his garage to people who were buying them to what he is now, had he not figured out how to scale by leveraging the efforts of more and more people. Now, there are some creative ways that he approached it because he approached it one way of hiring people to do stuff internally in the business, which is great, which is something you can do whether you hire them part-time or full-time. And then you may hire some people on a contractual basis. Now, what he also did was he actually had a marketplace platform where he just created a place where other people could come sell their products in his online store, which allowed him to scale even more because it's like now I don't actually have to hire that person. I just create the place for them to show up to be able to sell what they're doing. Now, all of that comes down to, this main point that I'm trying to make is that if you're going to grow, if you're going to scale, if you're going to take things to the next level, then there are going to be more people involved. You have to be able to actually bring more people into what you're doing if you are going to be. So, one of the things that I also tell a lot of people is in that process of bringing more people into your business, bringing more people on, is you're going to go through some ups and some downs because the reality of it is you're not going to be picking the perfect person every single time. If you do, you are a very, very, very rare thing. I mean, yes, you are extremely rare if you are able to pick the right person every time. Now, of course, there are some different tools out there you can use and stuff like that, but you're going to make some bad decisions. I mean, the truth of the matter is that there's going to be some decisions that you make that are going to be a little bad. I mean, this might be you for a period of time sometimes. I mean, when you're in your hiring process and you're finding candidates and you're interviewing people, you may have a couple of these moments. Now, hopefully, you don't have a ton of these moments. And hopefully, that, like I said, you can start to work through some things. But one of the things that I've seen a lot of people do is a lot of people have had a lot of these moments, partially because they never learned the lesson from when they hired the last person. I mean, or it's like they keep making the same mistake. And speaking of mistakes, there was a movie that my wife and I watched, and I thought the movie's a bit extreme. I mean, the movie's a bit extreme, but I thought it was a pretty funny concept. So let me tell you, I mean, background of it is, you have this straight laced guy, this corporate guy who's working a job. He's very bland life or whatever. Not a whole lot of stuff going on in his life. And he meets this amazing lady that he sits down, has a conversation with in the bar, and not the lady you see in the picture, but a different lady. And her name, I guess in his phone, he puts her name in as Missy. And on another situation, he goes on this, I think it was a blind date that he goes on, and he meets this lady that you see in the picture, and it was a train wreck of a date. I mean, the date was absolutely horrible. I mean, it was a very bad date. I think he even ended up just getting up and leaving early or whatever. But her name in his phone happened to be Missy as well. And then he gets I guess a notice from his boss that, hey, they're going to Hawaii. He can bring a plus one on this corporate trip. He texts Missy about, hey, how about a second date in Hawaii, not realizing that he texted the wrong Missy. And for some reason, he just didn't have a heart to tell her. Now, one of the things that I think about for a lot of business owners is, when you're in the process of really trying to identify who you want to bring onto your team, who you want to bring into your business, a lot of times people kind of make this similar mistake. Maybe not this exact mistake where they text the wrong candidate, but it's just like when they're thinking about who they need in their business, like they're thinking about what skill sets they need in their business, like what is the type of talent that you need to help your business go to the next level. A lot of times people find themselves making some huge errors because they're looking at these different resumes and they end up calling the person that they probably should not have. Or they end up hiring someone because they look good on paper and they get them in. They're like, man, we should have went with the other person. Because I've seen that happen far too often when it comes down to a business, or you pass on someone that you thought, hey, this person could be good, but you went with somebody else only to find out that they were a horrible disappointment in your business. So now that other person that you could have hired has found another job, and now you're kind of stuck with the person that you really wish you never hired. I mean, and unfortunately, that happens to far too many business owners. And part of that is because, you don't end up having a process for how are we going to really go about making this decision. Like, because when it comes down to hiring, I always tell people is a hiring decision, it's you're never going to know exactly. You're never going to get it completely right. So what you want to do is you want to bring as many people who can objectively look at it, and you want to get their thoughts and their feedback on the person or the people that you're potentially looking at hiring. Now, of course, you can't get everybody in the company. And if you're in a business where it's just you may not realize it, but you have, friends, or you have other fellow colleagues that, what, you may even be able to ask them like, hey, I'm thinking about hiring someone, but I want to get a second opinion. would you mind helping me out and just, having a 5-minute conversation with them and tell me what you get back from it? Because that's something that I'm not gonna lie, I've had to use myself because in the early stages of my firm where we didn't really have a lot of people in my firm to where I had to leverage my wife and ask her like, "Hey, I'm thinking about hiring this person. Hey, here's what their resume looks like. Tell me what stands out to you." Getting a second opinion on it and getting somebody else, and even to the point where there are some times where I ask her to hop on a phone to talk with the person who I was thinking about hiring because I wanted to get a different perspective. Because what you don't want to end up is you don't want to end up in a situation where you hire somebody and they're just not doing the job. Because far too often I've also seen different business owners where they hire someone, the person's not getting the job done, which then means the job still needs to get done. But unfortunately, the person who ends up having to fill in the gap and do the job for them ends up being the owner who was trying to get stuff off their plate. So it's just like, not only are you now having to do your job, you also got to do their job and you still have to manage them. I mean, you still have to get, they may be doing, let's say, you know, 50% of their job, but you got to do your job, 50% of their job, plus the extra work of managing them and the stuff that they're doing. It's one of those things that I always tell people is that, you know what, if a person is not able to do the job, you got to be honest with yourself and you got to be able to make some objective viewpoint or objective observations about this situation and about the person, and then you got to make some good decisions. I mean, because you can't just keep doing what you've been doing in your business, and you can't just keep allowing them to just stay in the business because they're going to eventually drag the business down. I mean, it's one of those things that I saw this meme once where it talked about, don't invest yourself in the wrong people because every employee that you have in your business, every contractor that you're working with, you as a business owner, you're having to make investments in those people. Like you're having to pour yourself into those people. You're having to give them something of yourself that, you know what? You could have been doing that with somebody else, or you could have been working with the right people, which could have yielded better results in your business. But instead of doing that, you're working with the wrong person, and that's not going to work out well for you. So you definitely want to make sure that you're considering that. Like, I think about an example where I was talking with a business owner and they were saying that, you know what, one of the things that we did is we wrote out, hey, here's the description of what you needed them to do. It was, and I think it was about like, collecting payments. Like, here's how we process a payment. When a client wants to pay, here's how we process a payment. Now, for some reason, client was having an issue with the payment and where the client didn't have a large enough limit on their bank card to actually, process or make the payment. And so what the person on their team did is the person was like, "Oh, well, what you need to do is you need to go talk to the bank and then just give us a call back whenever you're ready." And I was like, "Ooh, chances are that person is never going to call you back." I mean, because if you have to make people work too hard to get your money, or if you have to make people work too hard to give you money, then that person is never going to call back. And one of the things that I was talking to the business owner about is they were like, now I got to step out of meetings. I got to go back and give that person a call and just talk to them. Cause, like, really what it came down to is like, if they can't pay all of it, let's ask them, how much can you pay? Let's make some of that payment now, especially considering that the business had already done some of the work already for them. So it's like, hey, what can you pay? Let's pay at least some of that now. And then, hey, how do I help you get on the phone? Call your bank so we can get this address, or how do I help you actually work through this? Now, that's if you're working with a great employee. Now, and unfortunately, the business owner I was talking to had to step out of a meeting, had to actually, get on the phone. They had to call the person and they had to step in and do it. And I'm just like, that's what you were paying that other person to do. Like, this may be a sign that, hey, if you've written out the instructions, you've given the person, hey, here are the steps of how you do XYZ. If you've already done that for this person and they're not able to follow instructions, this could be a sign that you are investing way too much time in the wrong person. And there's nothing wrong with accepting and realizing and recognizing that, hey, you know what? Again, like I said, you're going to make some bad calls when it comes down to hiring people. You're going to make some decisions that aren't so great. I mean, I would say don't beat yourself up about it, but also don't kill yourself trying to make the wrong person the right person, because sometimes you get to the point where you really do need to move on. Now, one of the things that I do think that you should also keep in mind is how you avoid putting yourself in this situation. I mean, it's really going to come down to stuff that you do on the front end. Now, a couple of things that I've heard people say that have really got them mixed up is, oh, I can find somebody cheaper. I will say is when it comes down to service and the quality of service, you're going to get what you pay for. Like, if you pay for low quality work, low quality labor, low quality output, that's what you're going to get. And the question I always ask is, how much would it hurt your business if this person is a low quality performer in your business? Like, how much damage will that do to your business, to your reputation, if this person is a low quality performer? Now, I understand the balance of trying to find someone at, at a price that works for your business, but you don't want to sacrifice quality, and you also don't want to be on the other extreme end where you're making these extraordinary demands, but you're not willing to actually compensate people fairly. I mean, like, one example, I saw this cartoon and I thought it was hilarious. I mean, when I saw this cartoon, I thought it was hilarious because it's a very common thing to where it's just like, hey, we want somebody who has the wisdom of a 40-year-old, the wisdom of a 50-year-old, the experience of somebody who has 40 years of experience, has the energy of a 30-year-old, but we only want to pay you as if you were a 20-year-old. I mean, like there are a lot of people who are that way. I mean, and even in the sense when it comes down to my business where people want to hire me and I tell people what my price is for what they ask for, and they're like, "Oh, can you come down?" Nope. Like, I'm giving you, I know the value of the work that I do, and if you can't afford the price that I'm charging, then that means, well, I'm the wrong person for you. Like, you hiring me would mean that I'm the wrong person. If you can't afford my fee and I'm giving you a fair rate for what I do, then I always tell people is that, what, you really want to make sure that you have a process that you're looking and you're screening for the right people, but you also don't want to be, shady on your end where you don't fairly compensate people when you find who that right person is. You want to make sure that you have a healthy relationship with the people that you're trying to hire, because when you have a good quality hiring process, I will always tell business owners is you should start to lose the fear of, well, if I hire this person, I'm not going to make as much money. And it's like, yeah, you're right. If your business stays exactly where it is, you won't make as much money. But if you're actually hiring a good person, this person should be able to contribute to help you grow the business overall, which means you should be making more money. And if you are really smart about the way you're approaching your hiring, the timing, and the way you're approaching your business, then you shouldn't really have a whole lot to be concerned about, because when you hire good people and you compensate them fairly, and even some cases where you attach their compensation to their ability to deliver and perform within the business, then you have a whole new level of potential that your business can achieve because they're motivated and you're compensating them in line with what they're able to help the business achieve. So I always say is you want to make sure that you're treating the right person when you find them. You want to make sure that you're treating them fairly. Now, on the other hand, again, as I said, you're going to make some wrong calls. You're going to make some judgment calls that aren't the best. And you're going to make some decisions to hire people that you probably should have never hired or that probably just weren't a good fit. Or maybe they're people that were only supposed to be there for a period of time. That is perfectly fine. Now, one of the things that makes people a little anxious about this is when people think about firing, a lot of times people think to fire someone means to do this to them. And I always tell people is firing someone doesn't mean that you just gave them the boot, you kicked them out, and you just left them with nothing. I mean, sometimes I guess you would say, having a very fair, responsible conversation with the people on your team. Sometimes when you literally care about the people on your team and you're actually having some very fair and honest conversations, you could find that, you know what, this could go a lot smoother because what we may realize is that, hey, based on what they're trying to achieve, based on where they're trying to go, this might not be the best environment for them. And that is okay to come to that conclusion because not every separation of employment has to be an issue. I mean, I think back to even when there were companies that the very first job that I had right out of college, I was laid off because of it was during the 2008 financial crisis, and I was laid off from that job. To be honest with you, I wasn't sad at all because part of it is I really wanted to leave the job, but I was under a contract because they paid for grad school, and I didn't want to have to cough up 50 grand to pay them back. But the layoff actually made a very, very great equitable situation for me because, like, I wanted to leave. They needed to cut their head count costs because of what was going on with the company. I was like, cool, I understand. We parted ways. I still got to keep my degree without having to pay them, without having to get a student loan or pay them back for the degree. And it was one of those situations where I realized that, you know what they're trying to do and where they wanted to take their employees or the skill sets of their employees, that just wasn't the best fit for me. So when it comes down to reaching that point of realizing that you've hired the wrong person, don't think of letting them go as, hey, you're just going to give them the boot and kick them out there and they're on their own. Sometimes if you keep the wrong person around and in your business too long, that could hurt them more than you letting them go. Because if you're keeping the wrong person in place, that means they are staying in the wrong place. They're not going to reach their potential. The business is going to suffer. And eventually it's going to show, and it's just going to get worse, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's one of those things I heard that, someone and I follow a lot of, Gary Vee says, you know what, hiring is guessing. You do your best based on all the information I have, I'm guessing and hoping that this person is the right fit for the job. But firing is knowing. It's, hey, we've come up with a plan. We've talked through it. We set up some strategies, and the person just isn't the right person for this job. And you know what? We know that now. So we need to make a decision, and we need to move quickly because we need to free up our time so we can go find the right person. And we need to free up this person's time so they can go find the right opportunity. So I hope this was helpful to all the business owners, and thanks for tuning in to the show. If you'd like to see more of the Business Talk Library, be sure to watch us every week on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m.